is New Mexico Frontiers. Presented by Veris Research.
Hello and welcome to this edition of New Mexico Frontiers, the digital series. I'm Chad Brummett. Now, if you watch the show with some frequency, you've probably seen, it's been on the radar about bio drones and kind of maybe the next generation of drones that may look like ducks, drones that may look like turkeys, they may look like jellyfish. There's a lot of really crazy cool things going on with this. And the man behind it, Dr. Mustafa Hassanalian from New Mexico Tech, is in the studio with us today. Mustafa, first of all, great to see you again. Glad to see you up here in Albuquerque. Last time we spoke, I was in your lab at New Mexico Tech, surrounded by drones. So the first question I have for you today, and I don't know that we got into the weeds on it before, how did you get into drone technology?
Thank you for having me today. I have been doing research on drones in about 16 years. So when I was a freshman, so aerospace is always my passion. So I started to do research on fixed-wing micro-aerial vehicle. And at that time, I was trying to build these drones and design them and learn about their design as well as the fundamental behind drone technology. So I have 2 master's degree in mechanical engineering, and both of my thesis in continuation of my past interest was about the flapping wing drone. So at that time in 2011 and also in 2016, when I came to New Mexico State University, I started to do research on the fundamental of the insect-sized drones as well as the flapping wing drones that are inspired from the birds. And at that time, once I was looking at these flapping bird drones, so flapping wings are a little bit different than the fixed wing. So the flapping motion is responsible to generate both aerodynamic forces, I mean thrust and the lift, so they don't have the propeller. So the flexibility of the wing and the structure of the wing is very important. And once I started my PhD at NMSU, my project was that how coloration would affect in the efficiency of drones. So this comes from the nature. So for example, if you look at migratory birds like oceanic birds, like albatross, sooty tern, black skimmer, shearwater, they all have black pigmentation at the upper surface, and they have the white one at the bottom side. So we are from New Mexico. If we go out during the summer and we have a black jacket, we feel more hot. So this heat basically would change the flight efficiency and the aerodynamic load across the wing and would assist those birds to fly in the longer distances and have more endurance. So it's basically saving more energy. So that was the start point that I started my research on biomimicry. Once I started my career at New Mexico Tech in 2018, so I delved into the biomimicry field, which was an amazing way to optimize different types of drones and robots for varieties of applications and missions that we have envisioned for.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know that you had brought in some of the Monarch butterflies, because I know that part of one of your studies was looking at that pattern and the color pattern, and that really has kind of played into the overall design and our better understanding of these migratory birds that have to fly thousands, or butterflies that fly thousands of miles for migration with very, very little energy. So let's talk a little bit about, because looking at a lot of these, and we can start with the butterflies. Walk us through some of the drones that you've brought in and what their application is for, starting with the butterflies.
So if you look at the monarchs, these are the amazing butterflies that they fly 3,000 miles from Canada to central Mexico. And they basically fly and start their flight at early September, and at mid-October, they reach to their central Mexico. So around 80% of their flight is through the gliding and soaring. And if you look at their patterns of their coloration, they have 3 main colors. They have the orangish color, they have black color, and they have these white spots. So a couple of years ago, I started doing research on this, and then I found a collaborator from University of Georgia, Dr. Andy Davis. He reached out to me, and we started to explore these coloration effects. And the observation showed that the butterflies this patterns of coloration that they have is not just random color. And we had some experimental study on them, and once we exposed them to the sun with the thermal camera, we saw that the black pigmentation is hotter, which is obvious, and then the orange color is transparent. Now the question was why they have these white spots.
Okay.
So we had two hypotheses for this. The first one was they might be as a thermal regulator because they don't want to overheat it. So once with the Sharpie, black Sharpie, we painted those white spots, we observed that their body temperature increases 2 degrees Celsius, which is like a fever, like a human.
Okay.
And the second hypothesis was, which ended up in a journal paper that we published in PLOS ONE, was this black trailing edge. Our experimental study showed the black trailing edge with the zebra pattern, black and white, is going to change this shading vortex in their trailing edge and help them to save more energy. And now we have been trying to inspire from this small insects as the long-distance migratory butterfly to apply this to the aviation industry as well as drone technology to make them more efficient and consume less fuel, save more energy, and fly for longer time and longer distances.
Okay. So walk us through some of these others too. The duck, I know that we've talked about it, and the dandelion as well. What are the applications? I mean, why make the drone look like a duck?
So I can talk first about our dandelion project.
Sure, absolutely.
So dandelion seeds, they fly up to 100 miles through the wind, which is amazing seeds that they just float in the air. And because of the pressure difference that they generate, they will be able to float in the air. So one of the new projects that is currently funded by National Science Foundation is to apply this in the order of the milligram flying sensors that they are inspired from these dandelion seeds for the weather monitoring, as well as a potential application for a study the Martian lava tubes.
Okay.
So it's basically the overall idea. So this one that currently I have, it's made of the microelectronics, the sensors that are really tiny, in the order of the milligrams, and they have solar panels. And the new prototype that we're currently developing, they have embedded piezoelectric material that through this deformation would be able to harness energy because they don't have batteries. And that would allow them to save energy from the sun and from the atmosphere and just fly for long distances and collect information, and they can create a network. So now our project is reducing their weight to less than 10 milligrams.
Oh my gosh.
And make like 10,000 of this deployed by drones, which they can start collecting information like temperature, humidity, like wind speed, light concentrations, and so on. So
well, and you bring up a good point too, as we're talking about, because as we spoke about in our previous conversation on Frontiers, that the Martian lava tubes, they could potentially serve as a solution for colonization way down the road of the red planet. But we got to make sure that we can get in there and we know what we're getting into. And I imagine there's no way to recharge a drone battery on the red planet, so it's got to be self-sustaining.
Exactly.
So this is something that can be deployed and continue to work and really just feed back that data.
That's totally right. So the overall idea for the Mars exploration, because we have been looking at the lava tubes as a potential habitat for future colonization on Mars. So what we have been trying to do is having a multi-agent drone robot systems that can deploy these dandelion seeds into these lava tubes. And since they have the open entrances, there is a possibility that there is a wind going inside of these lava tubes and would be able to carry this for the subsurface on Mars, or in the surface, the wind basically can take them and they can be charged by solar as well.
Okay. Now, kind of staying a little bit with the underground idea, we've got this egg here. Bringing it back down to Earth, another application can be search and rescue. Is that right? So tell me how this drone technology can help with that. And it sounds like this egg, other than just being a cool drone, it's an integral part of this.
Yes. So one of our projects is funded by NIOSH CDC, is about search and rescue during the time of accident in underground mines. So part of this project is basically having an unmanned ground vehicle, which is fully autonomous, can map the environment in underground mine during time of accident, and whenever it's going to stop, it will deploy a drone. And drone is mimicking the bees for precision landing. So if you look at the bumblebees, how they can land exactly over the flower, they are using a very interesting phenomenon. So flowers, they're creating a very weak magnetic field. And once bees, they are flying, bees, they have a small hairs in their legs. And once they get close to this magnetic field, the hairs got a static charge and they start to move. And through this vibration, they know where is the sources of this magnetic field. And that's how those bumblebees, they land exactly over the flower. So now what we have inspired from this, because in underground mines is GPS denied environment, we have been trying to develop the same technologies to have a drone can land over this UGV in the GPS denied environment, mimicking the bees and flower. So this robot and this drone start to mapping, but while this robot is moving, it dropped this ostrich egg inspired sensor packages. I call it ostrich because they are the size of the ostrich eggs.
Okay.
So the main reason we have this this shape, if we drop them, so you see that this orient themselves in the right orientation, so they can collect informations. So this has plenty of sensors, like they can measure in the real time humidity, temperature, the type of gases or gas concentration, like in the coal mine we have the methane gas, the dust concentration, and in the real time this data will be transferred through our communication nodes to our unmanned ground vehicle and the drone and the rescuer team, and they will know how to optimize this they pass during their rescue. So this is a part of this part that we try to apply biomimicry again for search and rescue missions.
Okay. Now let's get to our feathered friends over here. We've got a couple of different fowl that have been turned into the drones. Is there purpose to learn more about the animals? Is it to be? Is it clandestine for a reason? Is it trying to blend in? Why go this route?
So drones, they have by today more than 200 applications in our daily life. As I mentioned about search and rescue on the ground mine, we have another projects for having a bio-inspired drone vertiports to deploy the drones for orphaned oil and gas field, to support the swarm of the drones, to measure the methane gas leakage. And another application is for wildlife monitoring. So the drones that are currently being used for monitoring the wildlife, they are mainly quadcopters and hexacopters. And they create a lot of noise, and animals will be scared and scattered. Another challenge that we have here, sometimes you see that an eagle or a predator birds or birds in general, they attack to your drone and they get harmed, and in the same time drones got damaged. So what we have been trying to do is to develop a nature-friendly drones for wildlife monitoring. Okay. So this is a duck. We actually have made two versions of this. So I brought the flapping version. So this duck, the swimming version is just for swimming, and you see that ducks are amazing water resistance amphibious birds that they basically, because of their feathers, are waterproof and they can float on the surface of the water. We developed a legs so that can basically mimic the motion of the legs and would be able to swim similar to the duck. So for the flying version, this is also a mallard duck that is preserved through the taxidermy is naturally dead. We just purchased from taxidermists. I should mention that.
So that's probably a good thing that folks know that animals are not being harmed in this.
Not at all.
These are taxidermied animals that have already passed, that they're being repurposed for science.
Yeah, so what we have been trying to do, we just basically buy the already taxidermied birds. So we are also, sometimes we don't ask taxidermists to do it for us. We just see what they have and we just buy them and try to do reverse engineering for them.
Okay.
So the blending in the nature help this type of surveillance in the wildlife. So for example, you want to fly with a flock of the birds to see that how birds in the formation flight, they save energy. We have amazing wildlife here in New Mexico, Bosque de la Apache, which is the second largest refuge here. And so that's also a capacity for New Mexico to do research about the formation flight. Like every year we have 300,000 migratory birds. They just come here, the Canadian geese, sandhills, snow geese. And if you look at them, the Canadian geese, they fly 2,400 kilometers or 1,500 miles in a single day and a half. So there is any single drones can do this type of flight, right? And beside this biomimicry, is not just birds that like we can get inspiration for drone. There are 7 management rules inspired from Canadian geese. Who should be the leader? Who should be the next leader? How to switch the leadership? When to switch the leadership? How to work in a group to achieve something, right? So in order to study this, one of the research that we did in the past is that once the birds, they create this formation flight, so some of them, they start to the shuffle, but they are flying as a family. They have different level of experience, different level of health, different age. Some of them they're juvenile, some of them they're older. So who should be the leader? Who should be the next leader? How to switch the leadership? So what basically researchers try to do is that they are to study this, they are flying with the paragliders with the birds. And sometimes that they put the birds in stress.
Sure.
So this technology also can get into the flock and fly with the birds to understand their physics of their flight, as well as to learn how to save energy and how their coloration would affect in energy, and learn from them and increase the efficiency of the future drone technology or aviation in general. And another application that we have envisioned, not just for the smaller duck, but for another types of the birds that we have been trying to get permissions to do with the predator birds. Imagine the airports that they're near the oceans. One of their biggest challenges is the bird strike. So sometimes you see that the flock of the birds during the takeoff and landing of the airplanes, they get into the engines and they got harmed. The airplanes got damaged. So now imagine that you have one of these taxidermied predator birds flying around the airport. You no longer see those birds. So it's going to push away these flocks from the airplane. So that can be one of the other applications that we have envisioned. So now going to this pigeon. So I know these conspiracy theories, birds are not real, but I wasn't aware of this until I found out actually in the social media. So, and I'm mentioning that because their iconic bird is basically pigeon.
Sure.
So what this project is basically a stationary platform. Again, we have trees on the wildlife, right? So imagine that this pigeon has a camera here. It would be able to basically rotate its neck.
Okay.
And it until like in the distance of 900 feet would be able to broadcast the live video and also take photos from this. So we did this project again as a stationary platform for wildlife monitoring. And now what we have been trying to do as a continuation of all these bird drone projects is to apply shape memory alloy, which these are the material that with adding electricity, they can basically move, and they create a smart motion that we have defined for them. So we want to integrate this to their claws. We will allow these birds to do the perching, and then that would be able in the future to grab like the trees.
So you would control the alloy to make the claws expand, contract.
Yes.
Wow.
So that's actually what we currently are doing with this pigeon. And this duck, I mentioned that this is for flapping and flying version. We also have one with the swimming version. Now we have been trying to combine them together as one single duck that can do both swimming and flying in the same time. So it's basically making that real duck.
Right, as real as possible. And it's important too, because as you said, you're not really going to get that accurate glimpse of its regular, its flight patterns, its migratory patterns. You're not going to get that if it feels threatened, if it feels that there is something that is not right. It's going to behave differently. So you're not going to get accurate data otherwise. So this is going to get us, it seems there are so many different applications that this can do, as you said, with aerospace, with understanding how to conserve energy. And that, too, I would imagine probably can play into that space exploration when we're trying to figure out deep space exploration, how to conserve energy on spacecraft and not blow all of the fuel, to get us into orbit. So it literally seems that the sky, the universe, is the limit on this. Now, because of that, I think that this podcast could probably go on for 10 hours and still not be exhaustive. So I want to get to what the next steps are, because I know you have been very busy. I've seen your lab down at New Mexico Tech. It's very impressive. you are working to really kind of make New Mexico and New Mexico Tech a potential hub for drone technology development, training, not just the piloting of it and the driving of it, but the engineering and designing. Is that right?
Yes. So what I've been trying to do at New Mexico Tech this is my 7th year there, since 2018, is to create New Mexico Tech as a drone hub for education and research. So far at New Mexico Tech, I have initiated a K-12 drone program that around 200 middle school and high school students through the different like STEM programs across the state or summer STEM mini classes that we are offering during the summer for high school kids. They have been educated how to design and build drones. Around 120 teachers across the state through our Master of Science for Teacher program, as well as in the collaboration with the New Mexico MESA program, they have been trained how to design and build drones. And around 400 undergraduate students last 7 years. They have been educated, and currently I have, in the past and currently I have around 40 master's and PhD students that they have been involved, and they have done projects in the area of the drone technology, biomimicry, and planetary exploration. Currently in my lab, I have around 8 PhD students and 12 masters, and around 100 undergraduate students that have been involved with this research overall across the campus. And the students that I'm getting, since the nature of my research is interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, I have students from biology department, from biotechnology, electrical engineering, civil engineering, computer science, mineral engineering, petroleum. So this is basically an area, and that's the reason we have tried at New Mexico Tech to build a drone major that can connect our community colleges, also collaborative things with the other colleges across the state, to create a pathway for future generation of the students that they can get to the workforce and develop this workforce for aerospace industry across New Mexico. And beside this, we have been trying to create a drone facility at New Mexico Tech, and having a netted drone cage, as well as a building with internal cage that we can fly any types of drones without worrying about the FAA rules, because that's considered as an indoor, and create this capacity here. So I consider New Mexico as an aerospace state. And from the economic development perspective, this is something that probably it can be one of our focus, that we as a university, we basically create this capacity to prepare the workforce for this industry, which you should have it in the state.
And as you said, and you touched on something that I think is really testimonial to the diversity of this technology, is that you have got multidisciplinary, you have got a variety of different majors, which tells me that there are a variety of different applications. I mean, we have just barely scratched the surface on learning about wildlife, search and rescue, deep space exploration, and then there are just the hobbyists as well, people that like to get the quadcopters out, they like to, maybe race them. So this is a technology that I can only see is going to go up, and it is going to go out, and it is going to, I think, really branch out. And it's really exciting to think that New Mexico Tech stands poised to kind of be the epicenter of that. And it sounds like that's the work that you're doing.
Exactly. And then if you look at from the educational perspectives, the kids, they love animals. Mm-hmm. And this beauty of is biomimicry. So we have bioinspiration and biomimetic. That's actually a class I have developed from middle school students to like the graduate level. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the nature, so through the millions of years, animals or also seeds, plants, so all of those, they have been developed to become what we see them today. And through this evolution, they become optimized. So we have this treasure, and if we learn from them, not just for drone design, for also other things, to understand that what we can learn from them. So one of the projects we did in the past, and I had a middle school student, she worked with me. Now she's a like computer science major, freshman at New Mexico Tech, was about the penguins' coloration. Mm-hmm. So if you look at the penguins, they have the black at their back and white from the front part of their body, and then once they're swimming, we showed actually how this coloration helped them to save energy while they're swimming in the water, or how penguins manage the huddling in Antarctica to save energy. And now we have been trying to learn from this to develop some heat management systems for the buildings that they are in extreme condition, like Antarctica or future habitation on Mars.
Right.
All right. So there is a lot. It's not just drone. There is another components of engineering or design in general that we have been looking at, and also understanding that why this happens in the nature. So this is all about inspiration from nature. And a new direction I have taken beside this is learning from the iconic creatures. So like we see another treasure that, for example, phoenix. I mean, I called my past dead birds phoenix because phoenixes come from the ashes. Or we have flying carpets. Or in the Navajo culture, we have a bird which they are talking about. Once these birds show up, it brings lightning and storm. So now we have been looking from this scientific perspective, what are the feathers of those birds are made up, and maybe they release static charge. What's the properties of those unique birds? Same for the different cultures, different history. So we have been looking at all of these creatures as another components beside this biomimicry to develop new technologies.
And I think we had previously, I think that it didn't make the final cut on our previous story, but you had told me about some of this, looking at historic creatures like the phoenix, and which I think is really exciting. I know, unfortunately, we got to wrap here in just a second, but before we get to the housekeeping and figuring out how to get in touch and following more, what has been the craziest design, or, you know, even if it hasn't been brought to a prototype, the craziest, most outlandish, we can turn blank into a drone. What would you say is the craziest adaptation from history, whatever the source, into a drone? What is the craziest idea?
So we have different types of drones. Sometimes we see creatures that they don't fly, they might swim. But the only difference between the water and air, for example, is the density and viscosity, right? So one concept that we have been looking at is like a jellyfish-inspired drone. So jellyfish, they're swimming on the water, but we can have the same concept with the same locomotion and fly and float in the air. I would say this is one. And another thing from the biomimicry perspective, that was a project that we did a couple of years ago. Is inspired from the autotomy. So for example, if you look at the lizards, once they're in the danger, they sacrifice their tail to rescue the rest of their body. And this phenomenon in biology is called autotomy. So the inspiration we got from this is that imagine we have a drone that a part is damaged and it can be separated to a smaller drone and make a swarm. So that was an inspiration we got from the tail of the separated tail of the lizard to develop a drone that's basically 5 different micro aerial vehicles attached together. They're all flying as a one single drone, which we call it UAV or unmanned aerial vehicle. And if a part is damaged or something happens to that, this can discard that, separate it to a smaller drone. So that has been one of these projects that we inspire from the lizards. But lizard is not flying, but as another inspiration we got from this.
Well, anyone that has grown up in New Mexico, as I have, you've seen the blue-tailed lizards, and a lot of times they are missing that tail.
Yeah.
So we know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and plus a new projects that we currently have started, and is again part of our Dandelion projects funded by National Science Foundation. We have been looking at snow structures.
Okay.
They are floating in the air and they come down, and their shape, their structure is very aerodynamics.
Right.
So they are trying to increase their drag so they can stay longer in the air because the air is more denser, it's colder. So now we have been trying to develop a snow-inspired micro drones that they get their shape from the snow. So that's one things that we have been now trying to explore and probably build this type of new types of drones.
Oh my gosh, it is just absolutely mind-blowing what you guys are doing down at New Mexico Tech. Mustafa, if someone wants to follow you, keep up to date with everything that's happening, or they're interested in enrolling, applying, and getting involved in this technology, where's the best place for us to go?
So I have a website that for K-12 program or drone program that we have created. I'm also an Instagrammer.
Okay.
So I have my Instagram page. So I usually update all our research there. And I get a lot of interest also from students once they see this post and they got excited about this project. So plus my email or they can reach out to us at New Mexico Tech anytime. We would be happy also. We give a lot of tours. We have a drone room at New Mexico Tech, and it's open all the time, and anybody interested is welcome to come to New Mexico Tech, and we can have the tour of our facilities.
It is quite fun to see it, I have to say. Being there myself, it is a lot of fun. Mustafa, such a pleasure to see you again. And again, thanks for bringing all of these samples in. Thank you for all the work that you were doing. And I can't wait to see a year down the road when you and I reconnect at some point to figure out what you have turned into drone technology, because it really seems like your imagination is the limit, and it seems that has zero bounds. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. I should acknowledge my students. These are the ones that they did all the works, basically. And then for next time we meet, I have a new project. I can talk about that a little bit now. So we are going to use the same taxidermy, but not with the birds, with the snakes, frogs, and lizards, with the climbing and jumping mechanisms as well. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the ones that can separate and, maybe turn into something else. It may be down the road you're coming in with transformers, and, we're looking at things that turn, from vehicles into robots. Sky is the limit. Always a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining us again. If you want more information or a full recap and all other New Mexico Frontiers info, just head over to krqe.com. We'll see you next time.